Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. I'm going to bring this directional antenna out to the field for a quick measurements of a transmitter, base station to be exact. So as you notice that I'm not putting on the compass because I'm going to utilize the digital compass inside. This is how the connection is. You can see that the RF cable is connected to the directional antenna and USB cable is connected to the FieldFox for communication purpose. And I have a tablet connecting to the FieldFox via Ethernet cable. So I'm going to show you a screen video on how to set it up before we start working. This is how it looks like, the setup part. And of course we have a GPS antenna here for location purpose. So I have a map loader up here utilizing the internet. So I would suggest before we go out for a walk to run an antenna count. So this is where you're going to align the antenna to true north. As you can see, I'm actually moving the antennas right now just to make sure that every time I move the bearing, the rotations does corresponds to the angle of rotations. So what I'm going to do is we go to count and run antenna count. So as you can see here, it shows that how it looks like, and then you have to run all 3 X, Y, and Z axis for calibrations. So you can start with this. Make sure that there's not much movement at the point of origin. So right now we do Z axis. So we do the rotations at a constant speed. And then click next. Then we do the Y. So the X. So it says clockwise, but I have no idea which one is referring to from your point of view or from the other side. So anyway, you just give it a try and see which one works best. So as you can see, I am actually rotating and see the bearing change, which is good. So I'm going to head off to the first point of measurements. So we are at the first point of measurements. So this is where I chosen, and I can actually press that button on the antenna. If you remember, I did mention that. So as you can see, I'm scanning through right now and the bearing is moving. Just make sure that the selections of the antenna is correct on the 3 bands. If you remember on the previous video, it did mention that when you rotate the knob at the button on the antenna, it does change the band of interest. So what I'm going to do here is to press right now, select the right band and press, and I should see the bearing. Yeah. So if I change the bearing a bit by another 20 degree, so you should see that the line will change. So that's the first thing to make sure the antenna is connected and everything is working well. So the next thing I want to do is to make sure that my measurements is correct. For the frequency of interest, I need to measure LTE signal. I know where the base station is, so this is a bit biased, but you get a gist how to find the transmitter. So let's set it to 763 megahertz. And the span, monitor span, because I just want to measure one channel, let's set it to 10 megahertz. So this is the LTE 8 megahertz channel. 10 megahertz. So a bit wider. So you can see that the signal is actually up and down, and it's hard to justify whether this is the best point of power. So what I would suggest to do is, first of all, let's turn off the preamp, because the second point of measurements interest is actually right in front of the building, and I want to make sure that I don't change any of this setting so that everything will be set correctly starting from now. And let's see. So you can see that the reading is actually up and down, and it's hard to justify that it is the right bearing with the highest power. So what I would suggest to do, as you can see, the marker 1 is on, so I go to marker 1 normal, let's go to more, and then you can see the marker functions is band of integrated power, and let's set the span to 9 megahertz. So it's within the band of interest, as you can see. So even that, the reading is fluctuating up and down. So the other things that you can do is to change the bandwidth. Number 2, go to monitor resolution bandwidth, change it to something lower. 100 hertz would be a bit too tight. 200, still up and down. Alright, let's change the scale, reference level to something that's more reasonable here. Okay, as you can see that. So it's about -31. dBm. So the other things that I would suggest to do is to go to trace. Let's turn on the second trace, and we want to do a max hold. So max hold is to hold on to the maximum power as you go about. You will know that at a certain angle you get the maximum power of interest. So right now, just look at the bearing side. I'm actually scanning through slowly so that you can see the change. So it's getting down, lower. The marker is still on trace 1. Let's turn on the other marker so that it's measuring the band power of the trace 2, which is a max hold. Let's turn on marker 2, normal. And then let's turn on marker functions, so bandwidth and 9 megahertz, which is correct. So currently you see that marker 2, and then it's measuring marker trace 1. So when we set it to marker trace 2, it's actually measuring the maximum power. So the maximum that we are reading is -15. So let's scan through. And let's see, marker 1, is there anything that's closest to -15? If it does, then that is the angle that emits the highest power. So about that, so let's do a switch. Let's go to measure 1. So none of the signals it's hitting at -15. That could be the highest power that has been detected. So I'll roughly see over here. Yeah, -20 somewhere here. So bear in mind that there are some building in front of me, so it's not a direct line of sight. So the ideal case is that you have a direct line of sight to the transmitter without anything blocking, so that it won't jeopardize your reading. But in relative term, when you scan through, it should have one point that it has the highest power. So I'm rotating right now. As you can see, I'm going back towards the opposite directions. So I'm quite happy with this bearing, so I hold it as bearing 1. So this is the blue line. I'm going to walk to the second point. So currently I'm at second point, so I'm going to change the bearing again, try to look for the highest point. So before that I need to reset trace 2. Let's go to trace, number 2, clear right, and then max hold again. So right now it seems like this is the highest, or something closer to that. So it seems like here. Is that the highest? It could be bouncing about. So let's scan through. Alright, that's ADC over the range. That's the highest peak that I can get. So let's do measurements. Click on it. And this is my second point. I'm going to the third point right. So I'm at my third point right now. Again, let's reset the trace. Trace 2. Clear right. Max hold. So you can see that I'm not changing any of the setup. So that's the highest point here. Yep. Somewhere there. It's getting lower. Somewhere there. Okay, I'm quite comfortable around this area. Let's do a bearing measurements. Press the button. So it seems like it's bouncing off from the building because I'm not pointing at the right angle. But anyway, this is a real line measurements, and I'll hold this as bearing 3. So as you can see, all 3 bearings showing the same directions from the transmitter, which is on the small building in the white plot if you look at the map. So I'm heading back to finish up this video. As a summary, so what we have done is we connect the antenna to the FieldFox, and then we did a calibrations just to realign the digital compass. Then we walked to 3 points measurements, and we turn on the max hole, we turn on the marker, just measure a wideband signal. So with that, you probably have to try and error many times to understand which direction gives you the best power, and from there you lock down the bearing. And the ideal case is that if there's a line of sight from where you're measuring, that would be the best case. But if you have buildings around and the signal tends to bounce off the building and give you a false measurements. Hope this helped. Thanks for watching.